I always tell people if God came back today and said, you can live 2 years of your life over again, what 2 years would that be? And it would totally be business school.
Welcome back to the Everyday Insights podcast. Today, we have a special episode for you featuring the inspiring Meloney Moore, someone who's navigated the spirits, fashion, and beauty industries, faced layoffs with resilience, and ultimately built a fulfilling career in academia as an associate dean at SCAD's business school. Meloney's journey is nothing short of remarkable. As usual, we have a wide-ranging conversation covering things like her newfound love for the city of Savannah, learning to appreciate global cultures through hairstylists, an embarrassing story of mine about battling skin reactions, and developing creative education curriculum in the face of AI's rise. If Meloney's story sparks a thought or you find a piece of advice particularly striking, share it with a friend and leave a comment wherever you found this podcast. But now, without further ado, let's jump into this deeply enriching conversation with Meloney Moore. Well, welcome, Meloney. Thank you for joining me today. It's great to see you again.
You too.
Yeah, awesome. Can't wait to talk to you about some of this cool stuff you've been doing. You have a really inspiring career. I think something that when we met back in business school, I don't know. I guess I could have tried to predict this, but I don't know. It's wild. You seem to change in a bunch of different directions, and it's really cool to see. It's been a while since business school. 15 years or something.
Oh, don't
We've
say
been out
that.
here, and it's like long
For
enough
aging
that.
me.
Oh, no, yeah, I apologize. It's long enough that like I forget a lot of the stuff that happened, and yet it was still this really impactful time, and I have like so many weird little memories about all the people. But I find that
Oh,
everybody I talk to like remembers something different. What's your biggest thing you took away from?
I always tell people if God came back today and said, you can live 2 years of your life over again, what 2 years would that be? And it would totally be business school.
Oh, that's so
Um,
nice. That's
That
nice
was
to hear.
it was so much fun. I don't know, if you had or you felt the same experience, but we had some fun. It was I always tell people like I wouldn't trade that experience. The amount of travel that we did, I did all of those study trips because I was focused on negotiations in emerging markets. So, I did the Turkey, Bulgaria, Japan, China, Korea, South Africa. And
Wow.
so the friends that I made during my travels, it was amazing. And then also, the core. I think that's like ingrained and singed in my mind.
Just like the classes aspect of the core, you mean?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
finance, McKaylee, all of those Eisenstein, all of those great professors that we had. And then the stress, and then it clicking, and then the rest of it being so much fun, and the friendships. And the beer club, I remember, and just all the great conversations, the deep conversations we had late at night studying. So
Oh, that's awesome.
that's what I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember all the times like, you know, this intense recruiting effort that turns into, I don't know, we were just like out socializing a lot. And then, we'd go to a recruiting event and then we'd all go to a bar together. It was just this cohort of people that we just spent so much time together for 2 years. It was really fun to have that camaraderie and friendship among a big group from the first morning when you wake up and get to class to the recruiting stuff after to then the fun activities afterwards. That was
Did
a
you
time.
take wines by any chance?
I did. I was at Cornell for undergrad as well, and I didn't take wines
Okay.
then. So when I went back for grad school, I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna get in there and take
Did
it."
you take a pass fail?
I did. Yeah, it didn't matter for
Okay.
our degree then, so there's no need to.
Yeah, I took a pass fail too. That was one of the classes that really stuck out to me as well. Everyone took it pass fail because it's like the most failed class at Cornell.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was, but I remember learning so much, and like even now to this day, like I'm such a wine enthusiast. That was a really cool thing about going to Cornell too.
yeah. When we left school, you worked at Diageo, right? You're in
I
in
did.
alcohol brands. How did that
Yeah.
How did that feel, or what? Did that
Yeah,
flow from
I mean,
your wine enthusiasm?
yeah, I was also in the beer club, so I was like marketing for beer club,
Hmm.
and we had a beer competition. And so I used to make beer, and so my internship was for Guinness, and that summer was phenomenal. Lots of parties and really great branding exposure. And then afterwards I was placed on vodka. So I was on Kettle One vodka. So it's great, but if you think
Good
about,
brands, big brands you're working on for sure.
oh,
That's important stuff. Yeah.
huge brands, great budgets with amazing agencies and creatives. That was like the boot camp for brand. and marketing. And I think about now being in beauty, it makes so much sense because if you think about a fragrance, right, that juice never changes, that bottle rarely changes. And, if you think about like a Chanel number 5 that's been around for a century,
Mm,
the ability to market something and have someone come back generation after generation to purchase one product, one bottle is a different type of marketing. So it kind of fed into, I think, where I ended up.
hmm. Yeah, I mean, Guinness as a product too is globally known and yet served at all these tiny locations that have their own brand identities and feels and
Yeah.
alongside of a whole bunch of other products that are different. It's like I imagine running a campaign or keeping that brand consistent and the product consistent, of course, that's a whole other thing. But just on the branding aspect, that'd be really challenging across all these locations in a way that I wonder how Chanel has that same problem or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, Guinness is a great example of something that people feel is like heavy, feels like it's older, but it's so established and recognized, and it has its own mythology everywhere around the world, right? If you go to Africa, some countries believe that the Guinness means a certain thing, whether or if you go to Ireland, it means something else. And at the end of the day, keeping it relevant in markets who are just discovering a taste profile for beer or craft beer. How do you compete and how do you change with the time? So I think that brand does a really good job of staying relevant and just like you would need to do in beauty as well, because those products are not fast fashion, right? They stay for a very long time. So it's more relationship driven, experience driven, and just making sure you're always kind of top of mind when you're sitting down at the bar.
Yeah. So after you left Diageo, or what happened there? What made you want to get out of the alcohol business and back into like beauty stuff? I think you did after that, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I think about my education, I went to some really good schools. I went to Notre Dame undergrad and graduated in 2001. And I don't know if you remember, but 2001 wasn't the best year economically, and especially with 9/11 just moving to the city. So it was a really tough time. Things were changing quite drastically. And then we graduated from business school in 2008. And so that was very dramatic for me as well. And being at Diageo for only 8 months with cuts, I was actually laid off from Diageo at
Mm,
that time because of the economy. And that was really heartbreaking. I mean, business school is not cheap. And I think too, if I think about my personality, I've always kind of had this path for myself, this Excel spreadsheet of everything I wanted to accomplish, right? I think I've always kind of approached my career like an athlete, like, what can I do? What can I achieve? And sometimes it's not left up to you, and sometimes it's not in your hands. And it was a really good lesson, I think, for me, which has made me really resilient. I think it's made me a very powerful person in organizations because I think it was at that time where I decided that I will not give my whole self to just one path and that
mm,
it's really important that I have balance in my life. And so since then, I've really been kind of searching for that balance. It's hard when you have bills to pay and you need to make money and you want to progress and you see everyone around you doing well and getting promoted. But I think that that's when I kind of made the decision of like, well, what's my end goal to all this? Am I trying to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 or am I trying to be a VP? And, what do I want for myself? And
mm.
teaching was always the answer to that. And so I think from there, I started to make my path and
Wow.
knew that I needed more experience, knew that there were a couple of things that I wanted to accomplish in corporate, prove to myself, if you will. But ultimately, this is where I wanted to end up. And that's exactly what happened.
That's incredible. Yeah. So you had that as a path from pretty early on in a way in your
Yeah.
career. And then you worked for 7 or 8 more years or something before you got to education, right? Like that's a long, that's a intense focus on that goal in a way.
It
Or-
is. I mean, I have to have something to teach. So I think that
Yeah.
I approach my career as, building my tool pack, right? So I wanted to be a marketer that could take a very old brand and revive it. I wanted to be a marketer who could take a very small, new niche area, white space opportunity and grow it. I wanted to prove to myself that I was a good leader of people and a great manager. And then once I could achieve those things, I also wanted to prove to myself that I could run a global business. And so once I proved those things to myself, I think that's when I was like, it's time to teach.
Hmm. Yeah, and then you
So
found yourself at an illustrious school at SCAD, and how did you make that transition, like in both becoming a a professor first, or and then a head of a college or dean? Like what's the how does that work of
yeah.
going from industry to getting a job in higher education like that?
Yeah. So at the time, I had one more industry I was interested in getting experience. So entertainment was an industry I was like, this could be pretty cool. So I had a few things that I was looking at in entertainment, and then I was looking at PhD programs. I went back to our old professors, Professor Eisenstein in particular, and talked about like what's the path to being a professor? Do you think I need a PhD? And you know, there were so many mixed responses. And just one day I happened to open my LinkedIn and someone from SCAD said, "Have you ever thought about teaching?" I mean, literally. And
Yeah,
I was like,
reached out to you that way. Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, absolutely. And so they mentioned to me that they were starting a new BFA program in the business of beauty and fragrance. And would I be interested in kind of like leading that department and starting the curriculum? So I get to keep my industry and then also start like developing the new talent for the industry. And so I could not turn that down. That was phenomenal.
It's
I had an
perfect.
interview. Yeah, I remember I had an interview. I came to Savannah, which is, have you been to
No.
Savannah?
Well,
Oh my
I don't think
gosh.
so.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's like even the 5 years I've been here, it's changed so much, but it's such a gorgeous city. Gorgeous, gorgeous city. Great place to live. You don't need a car. So I got here, I had one class, and I remember they said it was gonna be 25 students. It ended up being 50 students, and I had to give a lecture. The feeling of that was so rewarding. That first year I remember teaching was just such a rewarding experience. Such an emotional experience, and so, I can't imagine doing anything else.
Are you still teaching, or do you just do administration stuff now?
So, yes, I've been promoted a bit, so I was a professor, and once the program became big enough, I became the chair, and then we started a new school, a school of business innovation, which has been a phenomenal experience starting this new school, the DeSole School of Business Innovation. And now I teach one class. So every quarter I teach, a class. I didn't teach a class lab, but I really do. I'm pretty close with the students, and I really do enjoy it. So it's awesome.
Yeah,
It's
that's cool. So you still get to teach one, or you still get some of that feeling of like
yeah,
being in touch with the students and having to prepare curriculum and everything. It's probably
yeah,
challenging. Or,
yeah.
has it gotten easier
No,
over the years? Are you teaching the same kind of thing, or is it always changing?
well, this is the thing about SCAD. I mean, SCAD is really on, I think, the pulse of the industry, and the creative field is constantly moving. And
Hmm.
so the way that they teach their curriculum, the way that they are or way that we are organized, we're constantly looking to update. We constantly look at what jobs are emerging, what skill sets are emerging. And so we're constantly looking at the curriculum. So that's something that I'm doing right now. And I'm working on developing some really cool things in the future that I can't necessarily talk about, but it's exciting.
All right, sounds good. I won't try to get all the secrets out of you yet. One secret you mentioned was that's not so secret. Savannah is a city you don't need a car in. Why is that?
So the historic district is pretty self-contained, very walkable. So it's almost like a village. But after 5 o'clock, the city has something called the downtowner, and it's like almost like an Uber service. They have their own fleet of cars,
Hmm.
and they come pick you up door to door. And so I like ride this thing frequently if I get out of class because my classes are usually at 5 o'clock. And so it's very, very convenient. But I just literally walk everywhere because I'm a New Yorker, so I just walk everywhere.
It's
And
small enough. It's not like a suburban sprawl kind of city, huh?
no, I mean, Savannah's big. I mean, if you wanna go out to the beach or, like, any of the islands, but it's so gorgeous. The trees and there's just so much to do. Lots of festivals. There's something going on every single day, whether it's, networking opportunities or galas or picnics or fireworks or harmonics in the park. There's always something.
Yeah. What's one of your favorite things you've gotten to do there? Well, that's good.
Ooh, you know what I love? It's like a boat lighting regatta on the river. So all of these boats will like
Is this
have
a
Christmas
Christmas time
lights.
thing?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Christmas lights, and then, there's, like, floating hamburger boats in the middle of the river, and people come out, they watch it, of course, there's, like, lots of drinks on the boardwalk of the river. It's a big entertainment complex called Plant Riverside. So it's so much fun. It's gorgeous to watch too. And we have a
Yeah,
lot
check
of
it out.
rooftop bars, so you can get different angles, so it's fun.
One of my colleagues at Intel is from Savannah, and he always would talk about it. He was always going back to visit his family. So, well,
You have
him,
to
he
go.
was very bombastic. So, but you, I can trust more. I think this is a solid review.
Yeah, and the food, oh my god, I gained must be 35 pounds since I've been here. I mean, the food is so good.
Oh wow, just from
Yeah,
Love and Life. I love it.
yeah.
One thing I was wondering, getting back to our, how we first met and everything, and our, your school back then versus your school now, and your career throughout time. Like, what is something you learned back then that you have actually used, or like, what's your one of your key takeaways from MBA school that was actually useful?
I mean, there was so much that I learned, but I think the biggest benefit was the importance of relationships.
Hmm.
And I think that, having such a international school, because if you think about our class, it was mostly international, wasn't it?
Probably, yeah. It was like a lot of
Yeah,
Koreans, and
yeah.
and then a sprinkling of other things.
Yeah, I
I
think,
think are
like,
here.
it was very diverse and very international, and so I think from that experience and making friends with, someone from Korea and India and the Ukraine and, Ethiopia,
Yeah.
it just gave me such a broad perspective of the world, and then that translated into my ability as a marketer to see opportunities. And so if you think about 2008 when we graduated, how the world has globalized since then, if you did not have the ability to understand the Chinese, understand the Brazilians, you were or Russia, you were not going to be successful. So I'm glad I had that opportunity because now I'm able to teach it and understand the nuances.
Yeah, we got to widen our horizons and all these things, both in undergrad and then in grad school too, and then through work, branching out over time. When I was a kid, that was not
No.
the way life was, right? Like our childhood was raised in a community. We had a lot of the same kind of people there and learned one kind of thing. And it was each step you go out into college, you get to broaden those horizons more until, yeah, you're able to handle these big brands and understand that consumers are different in all these locales and how the product might need to change for them or the marketing. It's pretty interesting. How did your childhood relate to this kind of internationalized life you've chosen since business school?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't my first international trip was in business school.
Yeah.
So the first time I'd stepped foot, really off the continent, and I would say out of the country because I've been to the Caribbean or Mexico, but I haven't really, been abroad. And so that was like my first experience. But both my parents were in the military, so I moved every 3 years when I was younger. So I had that experience and I went very far for college. And, that gave me, I think, the appreciation of different Americans.
Mm.
But g gaining an appreciation for everyone in the world and seeing the nuances, that was really
Yeah.
rewarding, because I think sometimes, especially here, our media keeps us so insulated sometimes, and that to see it for yourself and to see how human everyone is, and the fact that they're just not like, a post on MSNBC, that they're actual, like, real people living there who have all different opinions and wake up and eat and want great things for their kids and family just like we do, is important to understand.
Well, on that note, why don't we talk a little bit about some of your later career stuff? I am like a technology expert person. That's definitely what I've focused on and learned about and immersed myself in over life. And I am not a beauty products person. So, or I have skin, so I can understand that level. But Where do you see
You
those two?
absolutely are a beauty person. You know how I can tell? Like, I'm looking at you right now, I can so tell. So, clearly, you have a body wash.
That's true. I
Clearly,
do. I
you
do use
maintain that
soap.
beard you have, right? I see it,
It up.
right?
I try to
It's
look the same. I try to fade into the background on this podcast that way. Just
I see the I see the clean cut. So, absolutely, you use beauty, and everyone does, and I bet there's a few bottles of cologne sitting in your bathroom somewhere.
I'd be surprised. I'm a low scent guy or low. What do you say? Oh, I have some funny stories I can tell about that. Maybe we'll get to that one. But
Wait,
yeah,
does your wife ever, like, make you sit and she does the whole, like, facial on you?
no, not too much. I like stay away from stuff a little bit. I just try to be natural. Try to low on the additive things, I suppose. So the funny story I have about this, which is personal but good for getting out. We'll see if I leave this in or not. But yeah, when I was in undergrad, I used to use like Tide and fabric softeners and just like normal stuff.
Not on
Like
your face.
no, not as a
Oh,
application product, but these are things that go on your skin, right? Like things that
hide?
you wash your clothes and then it leaves some residue in your clothing, basically, and you're
Okay.
putting it
I
on.
thought
And
you
this
were,
is
like, applying the Tide on your face. Okay.
no, yeah, this is not a
What's so
Ian's
confused.
stupid beauty trick. No.
I was like, "What?"
Right,
Okay.
right. So I'm just saying, I used to use these products that were scented or like have
Mhm.
things in them, right? And then same thing. Like I didn't use Axe body spray because that wasn't a thing that existed then, but I'd use some kind of product right back then. And then I had this strange thing where sheets of skin started peeling off of my private region. And it was
Yeah,
like, what the
allergy.
F is going on? Yeah, yeah. And so that was shocking enough that I cut out all those things, switched to things that were like no scent, no additives. Like, let's just calm it all down. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then I've been okay.
So
So since then I go light on products. I go,
a lot of people are allergic to fragrance, myself included. I'm very allergic to fragrance, to any type of elastic or latex or
"Hmm,
any of that. So I have to be very careful what I put on my skin,
yeah,
for sure.
I could. All right. So back to my big question, which was like technology versus beauty. Like, where's the overlap
Ooh,
there? What is the new technology in beauty products that I should care about?
this is a huge question, and the industry hasn't cracked it. The industry has difficulty, I think, marrying tech to beauty, and I think there's a reason for this. The insight behind beauty is very visceral, right? If you watch someone, if I give you a cream or a jar to open, the first thing you do is you open this jar, and I guarantee you do this. The fragrance, the
Mm,
smell. Then you put it on your hand, you like the touch and feel. It's almost similar to eating, right? So if someone gives you something you've never eaten before, you first smell it and then you put it in your mouth, and then it's about the feel of it. If I developed a device to put the food in your mouth in a better way, you probably wouldn't be so interested in it. You're like, it's okay if I just eat the food with my hand. I don't need the device. And I think sometimes this is the case in beauty. Like, I enjoy grooming myself. I enjoy feeling my hands on my face. I enjoy spraying the perfume on. And so sometimes I think we use technology very literally. However, that being said, I think there is a lot of opportunity to marry wellness to beauty. And so I think the separation between health, wellness, and then our outward appearance and beauty, that separation will no longer exist. I think these things will merge. And I think that's where we have the opportunity for technology,
mm,
understanding my genetics, understanding how the sun affects my skin, understanding my specific DNA and how it responds to my environment, I think will feed into a lot of opportunity into the beauty industry. But I don't think it'll be devices unless it's hair, because when it comes to hair, I don't think anyone will have a problem sacrificing anything to get the hair they want,
huh.
including men. You know, if you look at the hair loss industry and, regrowing hair, people spend time and money and whatever you can to get the crown that they want, and myself included. I actually, have been going on a really internal journey with my own hair. And when I first came to SCAD, my entire life I've always relaxed my hair. I grew up where it was inappropriate to go to work with braids or natural hair. That was
Yeah.
just known to be inappropriate. Well, this generation whom I love, they're not here for it. And they've been challenging that status quo. And I remember my mother saying something to me, you know, how are you teaching the next generation of beauty students and you relax your hair? You're saying that, what are you
People
saying
play
to
this.
them?
Yeah.
And so I took that as a challenge and I cut off all my hair and I went natural. And I have been struggling with this decades long view of what's attractive and what's beautiful, and then looking at myself every day. And so, while I do like my hair and I think it's edgy and it's something different every day and I really do love it and it's a part of me now. There are days where, I'm sometimes like, that Halle Berry I had in business school was super cute and it framed my face nicely. But, I working on seeing yourself as something beautiful is something that we all struggle with, and it's been a cool journey that I'm going through. But my students, oh my god, they're so supportive. Just
Yeah.
like they have been following it, and they're just like, "We love it, professor."
Do they give
You
you
know, if
tips or give
you
you
like
like
your
help with stuff or what's the
Oh, I
yeah.
get product tips. They do nothing but research. They're
Yeah.
such beauty junkies. And so I always get, the new brand. So I have a graveyard of product. I try everything. I've been trying a couple of new companies recently and it's been phenomenal. I even get my hair done in all of the countries that I visit.
Hmm.
So that's been a great experience.
What do you do when you walk into a place in a different country and what do you tell them to do? You just say, "Hey, this is my head. Do something."
So when I went to Brazil, no one spoke English. And so that did not work out well for me because I burnt my hair choosing the
Oof.
wrong color. And then when I went to Dominican Republic, I had a translator with me. That was phenomenal. I mean, she taught me how to do my hair.
Yeah.
And then when I went to Japan, that was probably the best hair.
Really? You think they would not know how to work with your hair because it's not very Japanese like, right?
And the fact that no one spoke English when I
Yeah.
walked into the salon and that they all got together, talked about it, you know, touched my hair, and then they found the products, and I came out and I was like, "Oh my gosh." I mean, the Japanese are
Mm.
just phenomenal in this space.
Wow.
So it's been cool. So that's one thing that I've been enjoying about traveling. I try to make it a point to get my hair done wherever I go.
Wow, how unique. That is cool. Yeah, I like your hair style as it is now. I think it's pretty cool. It's like a little wild and yet tamed and, kind of
Very
together and a little fun at the same time. It's all a little bit of everything. It's neat.
and it goes through a process throughout the day as well.
Well, speaking of that, what does it take to do natural hair differently than when you were doing
Oh,
it
this is like a
relaxed? Like,
4-hour
oh my god.
thing. It's like a 4-hour thing. So, I mean, from washing it, which I have to wash it in cold water, which is, like, uncomfortable, washing it, hydrating it because it's like a sponge. I mean, it soaks up so much water, to actually getting the curl patterns, to brushing it out, to then having it dry properly so that it lasts for a while.
Yeah.
It's a long experience, and unfortunately for, some of the photos that I have to take or interviews or things like that, there's not always someone who can do your hair. But I think New York is about to pass a law, if I'm not mistaken, that now stylists have to learn all hair types now
Oh,
instead of
okay.
just one hair type, which I think is huge.
Interesting. Seems yeah, okay, that's an interesting way we can get into this whole idea of diversity and inclusion and like what does it really mean?
Mhm,
How does it impact? So another way you could take that stylist thing is like it's okay to specialize. Like I only do Japanese hair, or I only do, straight flat hair, and I do curly hair,
mhm.
and I do like you could, choose that. Or there's this other path of yeah, you must spend a certain amount of time learning a bit of everything and then you can specialize after that or not, or I can only do kids' hair. I mean, what is the
Yeah.
value of,
Yeah.
what do you think, which way is the right way to go for society on these kind of things?
Well, definitely, I think everyone should learn how different hair textures react to product. And so that's a minimum. Now, if you specialize in this type of natural hair, even for a black salon, there are black salons who don't know how to do this hair type.
Yeah.
So it's not a necessarily a race thing. It's more of a texture thing. And so everyone has a unique texture, and like any fabric, right? You need different things to wash it. So you wouldn't wash your cashmere sweater in the same thing that you wash your, workout clothes in, or at the same cycle. And so I think everybody needs to understand all of the fabrics and what products and chemicals to use on each. And then as far as styling and things like that, then you can specialize. But, that's my personal opinion, but I think that's the more inclusive route to take, especially in the US. I think that
Yeah.
this
Where
is
anybody could walk into your
really like
shop,
a
right?
US conversation because for many places in the world, not all, for many places in the world, especially Europe, like you have more homogeneous cultures, so you may not have that, except for me traveling to your country and asking for to get my hair done. You may not have that experience. So,
Let's talk a little more about the diversity and inclusion stuff. I know that's like, it seemed like that's a big program at SCAD now too, or it's a big part of the
mm,
curriculum there. I know when that was one of my memories from back in our MBA times, we had like a diversity and inclusion getaway that just like a certain portion of the class went to. I remember that being like this really special event, or it was a really unique thing that added a
really,
lot to my experience there of like feeling special and understanding people in a different way. And anyway, it was neat. So how do you see that as part of, or I don't know if you remember that, or if you were there or not, but
no, actually,
yeah, it was pretty cool. Well, how does that float on to your school now, or where does it? I don't know how to ask. I don't know, what's a good question to ask
yeah.
around this?
I mean, yeah. So diversity inclusion, of course, is very top of mind at SCAD. I think that it's nuanced a little differently because I'm at a school with artists, and so we concentrate a great deal on diversity of thought. And in doing so, the conversation becomes very rich. And yes, is ethnic diversity important? I think representation is important. I think we're all coming from different places, and being able to see yourself in the faculty that teaches you and the staff that you interact with and in the jobs that you are recruited for post graduation is very important. I'm particularly passionate about it because I think there is a lot of opportunity for, students of color to find creative careers. Many times we grow up in underprivileged situations where, we are the lifeline to our family, and you're expected to achieve certain things, to make a certain salary, and to be able to give back to your community. And so that means being a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, and many of those STEM programs. If you are a creative, it's kind of heartbreaking for you. And that was the situation for me. I've always been a creative person, and going to Notre Dame and then going to Cornell, I've always kind of felt like that the only, right? And so I've always had the creative job, like even coming out of Notre Dame, I went into fashion.
Yeah.
And then coming out of, Cornell, going into beauty and spirits. So I've always been that creative marketer. And so having a school like this, or coming from a foundation of creativity, I can only imagine what I would have accomplished
Mm.
uh, if I had that opportunity. So I love being in this environment. I mean, just on a personal level, teaching at the school and having my close friend being a shoe design professor or a film professor or a jewelry professor. I mean, it's so much fun. I mean, we get together and just have amazing conversation and amazing interactions, and the collaborations we get to do with those professors, my fashion professors and my beauty professors. It's such a good time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have any like unexpected or surreal moments that come up from thinking about these professors?
Yes, yes. The chair of jewelry and I are really good friends. I really love jewelry. Earrings are kind of my statement piece. Working in beauty, we always kind of focus on hair and face. Our fashion's pretty minimal, and it's all about having good skin. And then you get to do fun things with like makeup and earrings.
Hmm.
And so, once I had the hair, she and I have been kind of collaborating on headpieces and accessories. And so that's been kind of a fun, interaction and hobby. She's made some earrings for me. And then
What do you
also,
think of as a headpiece? Is that like a hat or like a tiara type thing
well,
or
it's
like a
almost
like
like
a band
jewelry. It's almost like jewelry embedded into your.
woven?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool. I can't wait to wear it one day and Instagram it. And then also working with professors to design my own sneakers. That's been super cool with the shoe design professors. And there's just nothing at SCAD you can't produce because, we have the capabilities to do so much. So it's great to come up with these like really crazy ideas and pitch them to the PR team and do some really fun workshops with the students.
Yeah, what's a surprising thing that the students have come up with that you've seen? Or like what kind of projects do they get to do?
One of the ones I'm most proud of is, I had a student when I first started. Her name is Hannah Harris, and we had an article from Vogue asking like, where are all the brown girl hands? So ever see products that are advertised on Instagram, and you see the hands holding the product? Well, there's not a lot of
Oh,
diversity
okay. Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah. So it's usually white hands, you're saying. Huh.
yeah.
Huh.
And so she started a blog called Brown Girl Hands. And so companies started sending her product and she made her own business. And she's won so many different awards and she still has this business today. And it's considered like an industry change making account. And so I'm super proud of what she's accomplished. Also, some really creative tech ideas from the students and some salon ideas that have really kind of pushed the envelope on even wellness and sexual health. And so they just have minds that you can't even imagine, but I get to work with each of them and bring
Yeah.
these concepts to life and prototype them. And so that's the fun part is, I'm in like a little think tank incubator with some amazing talent. So that's super fun for me.
Yeah, I imagine, coming up with this new school and then you were tasked with both creating a class or and then creating the whole kind of curriculum for what that would be. Like
Mhm.
what is that like? What did you set as your goal for what someone would get from this school?
I wanted it to be better than the education that I got. I wanted it to be relevant for today. And to be honest, the business has changed. And, if you think about when business school started during the Industrial Revolution, it was really about training employees to be managers in factories, right? That
Mm,
was kind of where we were back in that time. Well, we are a country of ideas and IP and innovation and data, and we're in a digital world and services, right? And so, what does that mean creatively? And so, I think what you need to be successful in business today demands that you have a creative approach. And so now looking at our traditional, education, which was phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, and we still have that. But understanding that my students can Google anything they want, anything they want. It is up to me to create a classroom experience where they can make connections, that they can learn, and that they can ideate and innovate. And so that's really my job. It isn't here's my PowerPoint presentation and here's, everything that I know on a slide and you listen to me for 2.5 hours and then take this test to make sure you remember it. This is about workshopping in class and applying what I'm teaching in real life to get real life experience. And so creating the curriculum means being really rigorous on the assignments, workshopping ideas and concept, interning, and bringing in industry so that they're getting real life feedback for what they're doing and that it's just not an academic exercise. All of our assignments come from industry. And so this new approach to education, I think, is so powerful. And that's why we're getting the innovation that we're getting here. And it's fun to be on that forefront of really changing the way that we look at business school and teaching students. And so we're getting, great results with anywhere from 99 to 100% employment in many of the programs in the business schools. So I love collaborating with the industry. I still am very close to the industry, probably more so now than I was then. And so having that relationship and then bringing them into the classroom, it's super fun. And we have some really cool things planned for next year, which I can't wait.
What do you mean by you're closer to the industry now? Is that because more different companies kind of come in and try to access you guys' talent and things, or so you're not just stuck in the one company and one brand you're looking at all the time?
Yeah, and we also have an internal creative agency. So we have students who will work with our professors and we actually do projects with companies. So we work with companies like NASA and Google and Facebook. And we also we did a SCAD Pro recently with Coty, which is Calvin Klein fragrances.
Mm,
And so we do some really cool projects and our students love it. And so that
yeah.
gives them kind of the real world experience they need for their portfolios.
Yeah, I think that stuff was super valuable in our MBA program and stuff too. Or that was, yeah, some of the best moments is just getting out to go work on something real. And then, of course, once you go out in industry and you're working for those companies, I think you build on that experience in a much more major way, of course. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, just getting a taste of it was super useful to the students.
That internship, right, that we do between 1st and 2nd year, I mean, that's what really elevates you.
Yeah,
Once
it shows
that
you what the real job's going to be like, or
Oh,
what you're
yeah,
really training for. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So we give that every day in the classroom.
That's great that they get a chance to work on their own stuff. One thing I thought of when you're talking about innovation and kind of education and where it's going, or setting up this process of education in and looking towards the future with that is AI. I think of this two ways. One is with my own kid. My kids are
Oh,
4 and 0, and I wonder, like, will they even go to college? Like, what will college be like in 15 years when AI can teach you so much or be your partner through things? It's like, do I need to do that at all? And then I also think of like how the kids, or, the students, sorry, how the students use it today, or like how you're trying to infuse that into the curriculum of ideating things or being a partner in there. It sounds like there's a lot of space for it in your school of building, like being there to practice building something as opposed to just writing a paper or analyzing a case or something that maybe an AI could have done without your input. So how do you see it influencing you in the short term, the curriculum in the short term, and then that
oh.
long term picture, like what will school be in 15 years?
Yeah, so just to start with, like, right now, I think it's a great tool. Of course, it isn't perfect yet. I'm not worried about it, like, taking over massive amounts of jobs, and on our side, students are using it. There's not I don't think that it's realistic to think that you can do much about it. This is a technology that's coming, and I think that we should use it or look at it as an opportunity to leapfrog what we do as humans. We spend a lot of time computing, right? Researching and asking questions and trying to find things and ideating and brainstorming. But now if we can cut that time down, we can focus on moving forward as a civilization. You said something earlier about, will they even need to go to college? What I'm finding is that there is there's more of a need now for the softer skills that you and I took for granted growing up, right?
Mm,
This idea of empathy and collaboration and working together, resilience and excellence in execution and learning agility and things like that, that students today, as smart as they are, don't necessarily get it in the same way that I think we received it when we were growing up. So I think there is a recalibration that has to happen in education. And we're seeing a lot of high schools around the world starting to focus on what we call soft skills and what SCAD refers to as power skills. So presentation skills and things like that. So I definitely think there still will be a need for that level of education because knowledge alone doesn't make effective person.
yeah.
That being said, I think now that we have to level up what we require from our students and what we require from the workforce. And so all of the emailing and running reports and analysis and all of this should be able to go away now so we can be more action oriented and move faster with the market and faster with information. Now, if we're looking at the future, I think that data in general is a discussion that needs to be had globally, and there's so many implications to it. I think there's an economic conversation that needs to happen about how companies are using our data to make money. I think, there's a whole economy there that needs some calibration. I think that from an AI perspective, I think that there is, if we look at kind of our space travel and, our resources and fossil fuels on this earth and how we live together because the world is getting a lot smaller, how we live together, AI can help with that. And I think that there needs to be some conversation around that, not in a vacuum. And I think it could be helpful. Where I see the talent will need to grow. We're going to need people who can ask the right question.
What does that mean? Some people could interpret it as just, oh, you got to go get better at prompting an AI or something. But I
Yeah.
think you mean something deeper than that.
I mean, all the things. Right now, we receive information and we respond to it, whatever tweet or whatever news we get. And then we post our feelings and our comments. And I'm looking for a world now that starts to get really intense and asking the right questions
Hmm.
so that we can start to solve some big issues that we have in the world. That's what I would like to see. That's the answer to your, 100 years from now question.
I do wonder. Yeah, yeah. Like there could be some future where we all just have a little, robotic thing following us around, whether it's in our brain or not, or that's what the
Yeah, love
obsoleting
our
university
phone.
experience. Yeah, yeah. It's like, yeah, that's already there, right? You have a little piece of it and it just keeps growing until, there's a lot of learning we do. I guess it's the power skills, like you mentioned. Like, what are we really doing in college? What are we really learning? Yeah, sure, there's some stuff we talked about earlier, our finance class and our marketing class, and we went through these experiences and we learned a bunch of skills there. But there's still a foundational experience of what we remembered, of spending that time in our life, of doing the traveling, doing the expanding of your horizons. You know, there was a broader thing you learned that probably won't go away, no matter how good your
Mhm.
AI gets, your AI companion.
That's true. That's true. For sure. Also, like from each other, I didn't grow up with an understanding of personal finance or stocks or world events in history. Our education, especially, I grew up mostly in the South. I didn't have that. And so I think like, making friends with people like you and some of our other classmates really gave me some insight into, what I needed to focus on. And so I think the more people can develop those relationships, it's just so powerful. And I just don't know where we get the opportunity to do that if it's not in school.
Mm.
'Cause we're becoming so insular with social media.
Yeah, social media is a weird thing that has really changed our lives in a deep way and keeps doing it. It's also changed the beauty industry a lot. Every influencer has a product line now, or this is like the trend of the moment almost. Is you talked
Mhm,
earlier about like how cosmetics and things could become personalized more, or that there's a future where it's individualized to your genetic pattern maybe, or so
mhm.
really really customized to you. But that's not like what we see right now, right? It's customized to an influencer and their marketing campaign towards you. Like how do you think that's going to evolve?
Yeah, I mean, we have the capability now to change eye color, which I think is like fascinating. But as far as the celebrity brands, I mean, celebrities have spirits, alcohol companies, they have fashion brands, they have beauty. I mean, I don't think that'll go away. We'll always want a recommendation from somebody we admire. That's
Yeah.
just that's just a thing. I think that in the beauty industry, I think what influencers are doing is they're diversifying the perception of and definition of what beauty looks like. And so some of the beauty standards, if you think about like Glossier and Goop, now there are more influencers and diverse influencers, whether that's like J Lo or Tracy Ellis Ross, really diversifying like what you can purchase.
Mm.
from the people that you admire, and I'm here for it. They all, like, go in cycles. I love trying, every new product, and so does everyone else. It's fun, it's accessible financially for everyone, and it's pleasure, grooming yourself, taking care of yourself. It feels good. And so I think it'll die down most likely. There's a lot of conglomerates in the beauty industry, companies that own 40 to 50 brands. And so I think that we'll still see a lot of activity there. I personally am waiting for the men's market to to really hit its peak. Because
Mm.
right now, if you think we're only reaching mostly like 50 to 60% of the population, I'm really interested on and when men are going to really embrace the beauty.
Yeah, what could that look like? What do you mean, like that they just start wearing makeup like women wear it, or do you mean more that there's some new types of products? There's just a new focus of men spending a lot more time on it because somehow they all become interested in it.
Well, I think spending time on it, I mean, not even necessarily makeup, but I mean, just spending a little bit, more time on, the process
Yeah.
and the ritual. So I think
It's
it
an
could be.
interesting topic of like, how are men and women really different? Or I think there's a comedian, there's a joke about the WNBA. I think it's Bill Burr who talks about it of like, that the reason the reason the tickets aren't expensive or the games aren't televised as much is because women aren't watching it. Like, hey, women, why don't you show up? And if you spend your time watching that instead of Desperate Housewives, then they'd be getting all the money.
Mhm.
And the beauty thing might be the same way. It's like,
It's
yeah,
a
there
great
could be a big
analogy,
men's market, but
honestly.
maybe men just don't want to do that. Yeah.
It's a great analogy. The only thing, hmm, but then you have women's soccer, and then you have women's just gymnastics that we like to watch. Maybe it's an issue with the sport. And men everywhere besides the US are much more interested in beauty. Because if you go
Oh
to
yeah.
Korea, it's
Oh, that's
50.
interesting.
Yeah, if you go to Korea, I mean, men are wearing makeup.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely a cultural thing.
whole thing.
That whether it's a gender thing or a culture thing, that's a good
It's a cultural thing,
topic.
for sure.
Interesting.
Because if you look at the history of beauty, men have historically have worn more wigs, makeup. It wasn't until Victorian England or Victorian area that really, we saw a decrease in this, that beauty became gendered.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that sounds like an interesting class right there. The history class here is
that's
is
my intro to
how did
beauty.
that happen? Yeah,
Yeah,
how
that's
did
my
men
intro to
become out of
beauty.
beauty?
Oh my
Yeah.
God, the best book, a good friend of mine, David E. wrote, it's called Pretty Boys, and he does the whole history of men's beauty. It's such a good book.
In our culture today, it's like straight men aren't supposed to be into beauty, pretty much, right?
Yeah, and then it's
If you're
become
James Charles,
sexualized.
it's really cool, but
Yeah, it's just like, why does beauty have anything to do with, sexual relations is beyond me, and that's something specific to the US. There's a level of homophobia there that's very odd to me.
yeah, it's
Um,
pretty wacky.
and if you think about the '70s, and you have men who were, more peacock than women in that day. It wasn't like a couple decades ago with the bell bottoms and the the hair and the grooming. So what?
Women had some pretty big styles then too, but yeah, I
Yeah,
like it.
yeah. But I mean, I love
More
looking at
peacock.
those '70s movies, and I'm like, oh my gosh, men definitely participated in beauty.
Now it's all muscles. That's the thing you got to have to be a superhero and have big muscles. I think that's
Yeah, I think for our generation, but the generation coming behind us, with the Harry Styles and the Billie Eilishes, and it's changing.
men's cosmetics are HGH and testosterone. I think that's that's the
Well,
that's the
I think
injections and
we'll
the
definitely
product.
see. I'm so here for it. I want to see it. I want to see.
Sounds good. Well, I have not been into doing any of that big workout stuff to get big muscles. That has not been my my key thing. I've been running a lot and doing some more fitness stuff, but I don't know. What have you been up to in that space? You mentioned you do some dance stuff earlier.
So I'm I have a trainer that I've been working with, but this has been such a journey. I mean, hitting 40 is
What's that like as a woman?
I mean, it's part of it's like the best time in my life. I've never had so much independence. I've never been so sure of like who I am and what I want to be and what I want from life. It's so great. Everything's kind of falling into place work-wise, personally. I have a dog now and it's so great, but things don't work the way that they are supposed to anymore. And I am struggling with this concept of I cannot run, hop, skip, and jump and do everything that I wanna do now. I mean, I used
Yeah.
to roller skate and run and flip, and it's just I can't do anything. I used to be able to run in heels, like, putting on heels for more than 10 minutes now is just, like, an impossibility.
But
So
maybe that's the same. So my running stuff, I took like a year and a half or something just to get back in shape, kind of, or to try to get back in shape without getting constantly injured. I was doing all these kind of
yeah,
waves of like get into
injury.
good shape, and then yeah, I'd have some kind of injury, and it would just be like walking around in pain for 6 months without doing any workout. It was pretty annoying. So the key for me was stretching. Really, it was just having like a lot more warm up time and a lot of stretching time. That flexibility as you get older is, I bet, for heels, it's
Yeah,
the
and
same thing.
everyone says, like, yoga, and I'm like, I get so bored. I'm like, as soon as I start doing yoga, I'm thinking about all the things I need to do, like
Yeah, yeah.
it's just I, like, can't do it. And so it's been a struggle, but I mean, I love my trainer. He's phenomenal. He really, like, pushes me through it. I train, like, twice a week, and then, I go on walks, around the park. I love the park, and I'm hoping now with my new puppy that, I'll be doing a lot more cardio, so
Yeah.
but it's a Frenchie, so it'll probably be a little
Is
lazy
that
one.
real tiny? As a little tiny little dog?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, short walks at least.
Short walks like I like to do, and so I'm looking forward to that. She's in puppy camp right now for 6 weeks, so I get her back December 27th, and so I'm
What do they teach
excited.
them in puppy camp? I wonder. What do they promise you that they come back
So
doing?
so sit, lay down, stay, leave things alone. They also teach, like, distractions, so, like, fireworks, noises, what
Calm
you
during that kind
do
of thing.
exactly, and then,
Mm.
like, how to get a restaurant, off leash training. So I'm super excited about that. I just don't have the I it's hard for me to discipline. I don't know how you feel as a parent, but
It's a skill.
the second I do it and the dog starts to cry or whine,
You give in. You're well, it's definitely a
away.
skill. Like I think with the dog stuff too. If you ever watched Caesar Milan or any of those dog shows, often they're training the humans just as much as the dog or more sometimes. Like, so
Yeah.
does this class do that too? Do they bring you in and like they got to
Yeah.
teach you how to
Yes.
do the things that they've been trying to tell the dog, right?
Yeah, up to 6 months after the camp, and
Nice.
so I definitely need training, and so do the people around me who assist me with Bella. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to that too, but I think it's one of 2 things, right? They say you train the dog or the dog trains you. She was definitely training me. And so it was time to hand it over to the professionals.
Well, good luck. Yeah, you could do it. You're strong.
And she's super cute. I'm gonna show her for you. She's super cute and you can edit it, but this is her when I first got her.
Oh yeah, there she is.
And she's like the cutest little thing when she's not whining, and that's her and I together when I first got her. But the sad thing is, like, it's gonna be 6 weeks, and she's gonna be so big by the time I get her back, but that's okay. I have lots of time with her.
So yeah, you got the dog. You'll be out walking the dog. That'll be good. Do you do any other activities or any other hobbies now that you really like?
Well, I'm still involved with Paul Taylor Modern Dance Company in New York City, so I just got back from New York at the latest gala, and it's been amazing to see the company go from City Center to Lincoln Center, now with new choreographers post the death of Mr. Paul Taylor, and
Mm.
see how much it's grown. As we talk about branding before, if you think about a company and modern dance and keeping people who are young interested in this field of art, it can be difficult. So I've been a big proponent of exposing modern dance to younger consumers and younger audiences. So that's been kind of like a fun hobby I have on the side.
Yeah, and is there any link to SCAD? Do they like it's just they're both so art oriented, and so but it's a kind of a different piece of art, or do you is there
Yeah,
yeah, are
I
there links between
collaborate.
these?
Yeah, I collaborate with the film and acting department. They
Hmm.
have a dance minor. So Tiffany Everest, who teaches dance in our department. So, she and I try to arrange internship opportunities for students and who are interested in dance. And we have alumni events at Lincoln Center to see Paul Taylor when we can. So I do enjoy kind of mixing the two of those.
Yeah.
Um,
How'd you get into the Paul Taylor stuff, or what was yeah, what excites you about it?
So I have a friend who used to be a dancer in the company, and I got to see Piazzolla, which is their rendition of the tango. And so they have these vignettes of different couples doing a tango-esque type of dance. And I mean, it like makes you feel like your heart's gonna burst. Like it's one of my favorite. And then they have a lot of like comedic pieces and just really beautiful works that are really about society and politics even, and a lot about relationships. So I really do enjoy watching it. It's a little esoteric, I think, for some people, but there's such a large collection of choreographies. And so I think that, you know, if you really do enjoy some of the more recent pieces, it can be really fun. But I do like very classic Paul Taylor.
Hmm. Yeah, we my wife and I go to the ballet here sometimes, and
Mhm.
we have a friend whose child participates in it, and so that was kind of our entree into it, and to care about that scene here a little bit. But we haven't done a lot of the other dance activities or viewed any of them or gone to any shows. So the question I wanted to ask about was the ballet seems to have like they do a few shows a year, and then they have like the
Mhm.
Nutcracker and some standard classic shows they do that fill out the schedule or something. Is Paul Taylor that way too, or you kind of hinted at that there was some set pieces they have or some certain
Yeah.
choreographed things, or how does it work?
Yeah, so I mean, of course, like the ballet is something completely different. That kind of Christmas Nutcracker, I think is pretty indigenous to ballet. But there are classic, Paul Taylor pieces that I think, are often done every season or every other season. But what I like about Paul Taylor is every time that you go to a show, you're going to be exposed to a wide variety, and it's going to hit everyone very different. And so I don't get bored. I can honestly recite the dances in New York City Ballet, and I'll know what I'm seeing, and I remember unless they do new pieces. And so I like the modernity of how they interpret like what's happening today into their dances. That's what I like about Paul Taylor. All their like guest choreographers and the orchestra that actually plays with them. So it's cool.
Oh yeah, they have an orchestra, huh? It's not
Mhm. Mhm.
wow, epic.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
I wonder if
Lincoln
there's a
Center.
traveling company to Portland here. I'll have to
They are
do
very
some searching.
international. They are very international. They travel quite a bit actually. So you can
Yeah.
definitely see it.
Well, what did I have on here? Anything else to cover? Who knows how people listen to these things in general. Most people don't get to the end, and I think a lot of ways this content ends up getting to the most people, or maybe it's the most useful, is turning into shorts, right? So it's like finding those
Oh,
little
yeah.
stories or little bites that are um, on. So this is like another new thing I'm working on, right? Is like trying to get the shorts to actually hit. My last episode, I got a whole bunch that had about like 6,000 views, which was good for my show.
Was that Rhoda?
Like nothing. No, that was the one with this friend I met here in Portland, Brett Cassidy.
Okay.
He hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, and like that, like Pacific Crest Trail is a good search term, basically. Like people
Yeah.
care about that. They like hearing about stories about that. So it showed it to YouTube has like all the control over it. You put this thing up, and a lot of times, it's they show it to 100 people, and then if those people, depending on how many those people click on it, they'll show it to some more. And then depending on how
Yeah.
far they watch into it, how much watch time it gets, if they click away after 40% of the video watch, then they stop showing it. If
Interesting.
they get through 60 or 80%, then they'll show it to some more people. And they keep doing that and expanding the circle until the video's
Uh,
run its course. So you need to have these like search term things basically so that
Yeah.
it finds the right people who care about that will actually watch the video. And if it doesn't find those people right away, if you don't set your title up for the video and your description to find those right people, then just no one sees it, and all the work to make any of the content is useless, right? So, but the then I have like the friends or the people who actually watch the podcast or care about that,
Mm,
and that's more just like us and the people we
mhm.
know.
I
Then
watched
there's like
through
a
it to the end.
oh nice, thank you, yeah, and it's fun, right? Or it's not bad.
Yeah, it's good to see, like, how
Hmm.
everybody's, like, interpreted life and where they landed because I think all of us are pretty settled now. And so, our philosophy of life, I feel like in business schools, we had long talks about what we believe and what we're gonna do with our lives and not knowing and unsure where we're gonna get a job or an internship. And now I'm like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. Like,
Yeah, you've really found a good path for yourself, or that
yeah.
you kind of set that goal in a loose way, but yeah, work towards getting that industry experience and then getting into a place you want to be. It's very impressive, and congratulations on that
I
success. I
would
hope it feels that way to you.
It does feel like success, but I'll say that, what I've really been exploring recently, which I gave 0 thoughts to or 0 energy to my entire career and most of my life, are relationships,
Mm,
romantic relationships. And so, now, I have a boyfriend now, and that's not something I've, really had before. And, being in New York for 20 years, like it's
mm.
not a big dating scene there.
Yeah, like what I'm totally interested in how you chose that path in a way, or like, yeah, is New York just a place that is not conducive to forming long-term relationships and marriages and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone who comes to New York is looking to be the best in their industry. They're looking to work with the best, to be the best, and to achieve. And there are similar professional athletes, if you will. And
Mm,
so the focus is not really there. And it definitely wasn't for me. It was just not something that, I really thought about in business school or undergrad or, coming out. And so now, this is the fun time of having dinner with friends and dating and, going on trips together. And, that's a whole other fun exploration and part of my life that's new because, I'll ask you the same question. So now we're here and we're, kind of hitting 40. I think you're a little younger than me.
I think we're about the same age, actually. Yeah.
And so, and now going into this new space, and I'm like, well, so now, what is it? And I find that my goals are like, very simple. It's like, I wanna do a cabin in the mountains. I wanna ride a horse in Montana. I'm, like, obsessed with Yellowstone, so I wanna do everything in Yellowstone. And so, like, there are, like, small things. I wanna see a whale in Alaska. I do a lot of, animal safaris all over, the world, and, I've never been scuba diving and I've never been to, St. Bart's. I've never tried to surf. And so all of these things now are kind of coming on my list. And there's some 5-star restaurants, Michelin restaurants I want to go to in Europe. And I want to go to some of these rare food restaurants in Japan. And like, there's so much I want to do. I haven't been to the Middle East. So, but I wanna do it with someone and friends, and so now that I have this kind of great group of kind of eclectic and international friends, it's been fun. So that's the stuff that I'm really into, and, I can see a day now where I may not be working one day, and I don't think, being younger, that's something that ever crossed my mind.
Oh, do you mean you're setting it as a goal, like like the financial
Retirement.
independence, retiring early, kind of
Yeah.
community, or like, hey, yeah, that I have this thing, and I'm going to save a bunch of money, and then I'm not going to work.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
not something that ever. So, I mean,
Mm,
I think now it's interesting being at that age of like, yeah, that's another milestone.
mm. Yeah, no, that's exciting.
What are you
That
thinking? I mean, you have kids, so it's about seeing them graduate and, all of that, you'd have a while to
Yeah.
get a whole other milestone. So, I mean, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time doing a lot of those things you're talking about, or I tried to get a lot of that out of the way during, or like during grad school. I was very focused on forming relationships and meeting people, as well as um, going out and experiencing life. Mountain biking, or
You were
going on
pretty,
trips, going doing different stuff. Having
yeah, you were pretty
adventures.
athletic, I remember.
Yeah, yeah, we try to be that way, or
Then
So
you
I
you
guess I
you bicycle too a lot, right?
Yeah, I did triathlon for a while. Actually, in
Yes,
grad school, yeah, I was doing it then. I was training for an Ironman, and then
that's
I
right, I
completed that a few years
remember.
after. Yeah, I got sick at the end of grad school. I had to get my gallbladder out, and that was like a month before my race or something, and blew up my chances for that one. But I don't think I was really ready for it then anyway. So anyway, it took me a few more years to get back, and I did a whole lot more triathlons, and then I did Ironman Cozumel years later, and actually, I proposed to my wife at the end of it. I carried the ring with me through the swim, and
Wow.
I what do you call it? I sewed it into my uniform, and then I asked her to marry me at the end. So anyway, a lot of random stories together, but that was, yeah, it was a fun quest to accomplish that big goal. I set this big audacious goal for myself that not everybody can do an Ironman, and I was like, yeah, let me see if I can do it. And that started me off on a quest of other endurance sports, but it was really fun.
And then how did you decide to get out of industry?
I guess, like you, I've always wanted to do creative stuff, and have kind of woven a bunch of those pieces throughout my career as well. And maybe 7 or 8 years ago, when I was working at Intel, I kind of had that moment that you talked about a little bit earlier in your career, maybe, of I could see where it was going, and wasn't going exactly where I wanted, and had this kind of decision to make. And I decided then to kind of not go too crazy with my Intel career, and focus on these other things at the same time. So I wrote a virtual reality video game, and started like learning other skills, learning to code really well, and do game design, and started building out these other pieces of things I could do, and tried to like have a side hustle that was keeping me interested, instead of my main career, trying to like really pursue that to the nth degree. And then, so this is kind of the result of it, is I did that for a while, and it's just not enough. Like, you can't really succeed in these side careers if you're not focused enough on them. So
Mm.
when this came up at the end of last year, we had the opportunity to get some severance package and all that, and I decided, hey, I'm gonna actually try to do it. And so so this was the first big project of mine, which was going to be a side hustle thing, was this podcast, and to say, let me put some of my time into connecting up with friends, capturing their insights, using the skills I've built at Intel and in my career of interviewing and doing research, and trying to understand people at a deeper level, and try to bring some of those skills to this fun little project, which turns into be like a lot of work. That running the podcast has taken way more time than I thought it would, but I'm looking forward
Podcasts
to.
are actually an assignment in one of my classes, and
Oh
my
yeah.
students are always like, "This is a lot of work," and I'm like, "Yes, it is." And
Everybody and their brother seems to have one, but it all seems to be easier than
I
mine.
don't
I
I
like
mean,
like I did
I'm
this video thing, and it 10x the amount of work. I thought it would be like just a little bit extra. Oh, I'm already recording audio. Let's do video too, but it's way more work.
I always wondered when you, like, have a videographer or you have someone taking pictures, like, why it takes them, like, a month to get back to you on the final print and everything. It's like, "What are you
Yeah.
doing over there?" It's just like, "You took the picture, I saw them, just send it back to me." And
Uh,
now being on this side of the creative and seeing the processes, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea." But some of the things you don't even see as an audience member or
yeah.
understand the quality. Now I have that background, and it is intensive. Doing
And
podcasts are like, it's a lot.
I'm persnickety enough to both know the differences in quality, and then to want to attain them. And it's like, well, how much time do I trade for trying to make this visual quality a little bit better, that most people watching podcasts aren't even watching the video. So like, it's all exercise in
Content is
futility
king.
sometimes.
I think it's and content is king and it's table stakes. So everyone has to have this skill. And
Yeah.
like all of my students have this skill because you
Yeah,
just
that's
you
cool.
have to. You have to. I'm just amazed
Yeah.
at
So I'm,
TikTokers.
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
TikTokers who are like putting this stuff together and like 3 or 4 TikToks a day. Like, how much time do you spend at home recording this stuff?
Yeah, and editing and everything. It is an intense production, or I don't know how people do it. Some of the YouTube edits I've seen where they're having,
Oh, yeah.
5 cuts every second, and it's like just the amount of work it is to do any of that is crazy. Like I'm trying to edit together this video, which is mostly just one big long segment, single camera stuff, and takes a lot of time. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's impressive, or it's
What do you
daunting. I think I look at all that content out there, and it's like, oh my gosh, how could you ever compete, or how does
so
anybody
what
do
do
it?
you think about doing next?
I'm really gonna get back towards the video game development stuff. I think it felt good when I was doing that, or it feels like the place I want to be. So my goal is to kind of wrap up some of this podcast stuff. I still want to keep it as a side skill or side thing I'm doing, or a fun business. Or like you said, it's like even doing the video game stuff, I need the media creation and the personality, or the ability to promote it through video and social media and all
Mhm,
this kind of
mhm,
content.
mhm.
So that's my goal, I guess, is try to get some of my games running again, and then use some of this to help it promote it eventually.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, something. It's something. How about you? What's next? Teach the dog. I think that's probably the
Oh my goodness.
enjoy dog life, and
I mean,
and keep going to school.
I have a business school that's only 2 years old, and we have a lot planned. And so, the thing about teaching is it's never perfect, right? Like, you're constantly updating and upgrading and building out programs and making new ones. And so, mm, I think right now I'm kind of delving into the graduate space. I was really focused on undergraduate
Mm.
education when I first came. So I'm really delving into the graduate level programs at this point, which is really exciting and super interesting. And then also just learning the university. I've only been here for 5 years, and learning higher education, working with high school, learning about the recruitment process. So there's a lot of industry knowledge that I'm trying to pick up on now. But I think ultimately, I'm looking forward to having my puppy and developing that kind of personal side of my life. And my mother's moved here now. And so just really kind of enjoying family, building family and friends.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, for me, I tried to do a lot of that adventure stuff earlier on in a way, and then now, yeah, it's very family focused. That I'm spending a lot of time just trying to be a great dad. And I guess that's the thing I'm trying to succeed in most. Taking
Yeah.
good care
I
of my
mean,
kids.
we have fun.
Yeah.
And fun
Uh,
at school. Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm satisfied with that. I don't feel like if I died tomorrow, like, I mean, I got to do all the things that I wanted to do.
It sounded like the trips you got to take were really cool. Like the fact that we had those excursions, they're like a little bit planned.
Yeah,
You could be part of the planning, but someone was there caring about it, planning it, and then you could go jump in and go to all those.
absolutely.
You
I
mentioned a
mean,
lot of great countries.
yeah. And then, I mean, Ian, now I'm the one planning the trips. I'm the one taking them abroad. And
Yeah,
so it's a crazy experience, but, now I get to do so much and kind of relive that in a way. So
yeah.
that's cool.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, Melanie. It was wonderful to catch
Absolutely.
up with
Thanks for
you, and
having me.
let me know if there's anything I can do for you ever, of course. And
Absolutely.
keep up the good work.
Thanks.
That's it for today. Thanks a ton for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time, friends.